It's now been 17 years since David Beckham sensationally left Manchester United in a move to Real Madrid, just weeks after he had seemed destined to sign for Barcelona. Beckham is obviously the most high-profile England international to have played abroad, and indeed, the most high-profile England international full stop. Becks went on to play in America, Italy and France, in addition to Spain of course, becoming the first and as far as I'm aware still the only Englishman to have won league titles in 4 different countries. Unlike the Brazilians, the Germans and the French, the English are notoriously poor travellers. English players tend not to play abroad at all, and when they do, it's either just a jolly and one last payday somewhere sunny at the end of their careers, or it doesn't go very well. There are some exceptions though. Now, I've been asked to rank every England international to have played abroad since David Beckham, so that is every player to have been capped by the England senior team that's subsequently played overseas since 2003. Not including those who went on to play in Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, or the Republic of Ireland. As it turns out, there are quite a lot, 29 to be precise, so forgive me for being terse particularly with the early inclusions. I'm going to try and limit some to just a single sentence, so you won't get the wealth and depth of world-class footballing knowledge and insight that you've come to know and love on this channel with every inclusion. I think I've got everyone, but there is a slight chance I've missed someone given that there are so many. Let me know in the comments if you think there's anyone I have missed, but to reiterate, only full England internationals who've played abroad since 2003, so that means no Bradley Wright-Phillips, no Ravel Morrison, and no Peter Crouch. And obviously, no Jimmy Greaves, Mark Hateley, or Chris Waddle. To be clear, the players are ranked based on how well they played during their time outside of England, and their time outside of England alone. Here is my attempt at ranking every England international to have played abroad since David Beckham. JOLEON LESCOTT. JOLEON LESCOTT spent 4 months playing in Greece with AEK Athens, where he made 4 appearances, suffered a knee injury, and had his contract terminated after refusing rehabilitation in Greece. CARLTON Cole. At the end of his career, CARLTON Cole turned out for Sacramento Republic in the United Soccer League and Persib Bandung in Indonesia's Liga 1. The veteran centre-forward, who won 7 caps for England, played a combined total of 9 games for the 2 clubs without scoring a single goal. Francis Jeffers. A candidate for the title of both the worst England international and the worst England international overseas, after Francis Jeffers found his career in England in tatters, he looked to make it on the other side of the world. The now-turned Everton coach scored 2 goals in 28 games during 2 stints with Newcastle Jets in the A-League, as well as making 2 appearances for Maltese side Floriana. Nicky Shorey. Nicky Shorey won 2 caps for England in 2007, and 8 years later he found himself in the newly created Indian Super League. Shorey spent a season with Pune City, making 14 appearances as the club finished second from bottom in the ISL. Wes Brown. Wes Brown's situation was pretty similar to that of Nicky Shorey's, inasmuch as the former Manchester United man went to the Indian Super League, signing for Kerala Blasters in his case, where he played 15 games for a team that finished 6th in a league of 8 clubs. DARIUS VASSELL. Sven's favourite backup striker, DARIUS VASSELL won a somewhat generous 22 caps for England, scoring 4 goals. That's better than his output overseas, with the former Villa man having spent a season in Turkey with Ankara, where he scored just 4 goals in 32 games. Micah Richards. Micah Richards won the majority of his 13 England caps before he turned 20, and unfortunately the right-back played his last game as a professional at the age of 29. Richards went on loan to Fiorentina in Serie A in the 2014-15 season, but he suffered a number of niggly injuries and struggled to find any kind of rhythm, registering just 10 appearances in the league and 19 in all competitions. Shaun Wright-Phillips. As I said in the introduction, there's no Bradley Wright-Phillips in this video since he never played for England, but while Shaun had a much better career domestically, he didn't set the US alight like Bradley did. Shaun Wright-Phillips joined his brother at New York Red Bulls in 2015, where he played 25 games before dropping into the United Soccer League to spend a season with Phoenix Rising. Daniel Sturridge. Daniel Sturridge didn't exactly do too badly when he played overseas, scoring 7 goals in 16 games in all competitions for Trabzonspor in Turkey. Unfortunately, just 6 months into his 3-year contract in Trabzon, Sturridge was handed a 4-month ban from football worldwide for breaching betting rules and had his contract terminated by the club. David James. A man who managed Wes Brown very briefly in India, David James had 2 stints abroad, one in Iceland and one in India. Both came once James was well into his 40s, as he helped out his old teammate Herman Hreidarsson as a player coach in Iceland with IBV before making 12 appearances in the 2014 Indian Super League for Kerala Blasters before retiring. Joe Hart. Making it a couple of goalkeepers in quick succession, Joe Hart ought to have been in his prime when he left Manchester City to join Torino on loan. But in truth, it was just the first season of a prolonged period of decline for the man who was at the time still England's number one. Hart made 37 appearances for Torino, keeping just 5 clean sheets, making a number of high-profile errors, and receiving public criticism from the Torino club president. Jonathan Woodgate. Jonathan Woodgate's time at Real Madrid is actually rather misrepresented due to his woeful debut in which he scored an own goal and was later sent off. Following that catastrophic start, Woodgate actually put in several impressive performances before injury struck once again. Ultimately, Woodgate only played 14 games for Los Blancos, so 18th is where he ends up. Steven Gerrard. A Liverpool legend who won 114 caps for England, Steven Gerrard only ever had 2 clubs, but he's much more fondly remembered on Merseyside than he is in Los Angeles. Across the 2015 and 2016 campaigns, Gerrard played 38 games for LA Galaxy before retiring, admitting himself that he found the travel involved in the MLS to be a challenge and his performances were often rather sluggish. EMILE HESKEY. EMILE HESKEY finds himself roughly in the middle of this list, which seems reasonable for a man who had one very good season and one not so good season abroad. Both of those seasons were spent with the Newcastle Jets in the A-League, who famously had their own HESKEY cam at one time, but following 9 goals in 23 games in his first season, HESKEY scored only once in 19 games the following term before being released. Steven CAULKER. One of only a few players in this video who is currently playing abroad, Steven CAULKER, is the most prolific international in this list, having scored for England in every game he played for the Three Lions. Once a highly regarded and promising young centre-back, CAULKER's career faltered in England, and he joined Turkish side Alanyaspor in January 2018. Having been involved in a traumatic minibus crash that cost one of his teammates his life, CAULKER has gone on to play 47 games for Alanyaspor, earning 1 or 2 plaudits during the process. Robbie Fowler. Dead-eyed Liverpool legend Robbie Fowler remains Liverpool's highest scorer of the Premier League era, but he only won 26 caps for England at a time of fierce competition for the number 9 shirt for the Three Lions. Fowler went abroad in 2009, 7 years after his last cap for England, joining North Queensland Fury in the A-League, followed by a move to divisional rivals Perth Glory. Fowler scored 9 goals in consecutive seasons in Australia before spending one last season in Thailand with Muang Thong United, where he bagged 4 goals in 20 games. Ashley Cole. England's most capped fullback of all time, Ashley Cole's time abroad was another that was a bit of a mixed bag. He had a miserable 18 months with Roma, making only 11 league appearances, before being frozen out by manager Rudy Garcia, having failed to show the level of form or consistency that he had produced in England. Cole subsequently moved to the MLS with LA Galaxy, where he made more than 90 appearances in 3 seasons and was solid, if not spectacular. Jermaine Defoe. Jermaine Defoe has scored with some regularity for virtually every club he's ever played for, with the exception of his second stint at Bournemouth, and he scored prolifically in his brief spell outside of Britain. Defoe joined Toronto FC in the MLS in January 2014, where he scored 12 goals in 21 games before returning to the Premier League with Sunderland. It was a brief spell, but a successful one nonetheless, so Defoe comes in at 12th. Michael Owen. There is a perception that Michael Owen was an enormous flop at Real Madrid, when in actual fact, the Englishman spent just a single season with the Los Blancos in which he was their second top scorer, sandwiched between Ronaldo and Raul. Owen scored 16 goals during his only season in Spain, despite already being past his best, but he then returned to England and suffered further injury woes at Newcastle United. Frank Lampard. Frank Lampard actually seemed to have a lot of struggles in common with his former England midfield partner Steven Gerrard in the MLS, with regards to the amount of travel and the physicality of the games, with both players well into their 30s. One thing Lampard never lost though was his movement and sharp eye for goal, and he kickstarts our top 10 primarily by virtue of the fact that he bagged 15 goals in just 31 games from midfield for New York City FC. Joey Barton. Marseille are a club that have always courted controversy, and the same goes for Joey Barton. They became a match made in heaven in 2012 as Barton arrived on a season-long loan with an 11-game ban hanging over him following a headbutt against his former club, Manchester City. Barton did eventually find regular game time for one of France's most successful clubs, adding some bite to their midfield as the club finished as runners-up in Liga 1 to PSG. Scott Carson. Not the most high profile of Englishmen abroad, given the fact that Scott Carson was basically a number 2 for England, who won 4 caps and went off to play in the Turkish Super League, which isn't widely broadcast here in the UK. Nonetheless, Man City's current third choice has been one of English football's better exports, spending 2 good seasons in Turkey with Bursaspor. Carson made 77 appearances in total, and Bursaspor had one of the best defensive records in Turkey during that time. Joe Cole. One of a handful of Englishmen to have played in multiple foreign leagues, Joe Cole spent a season on loan from Liverpool at Lille, when he still very much had aspirations of returning to the England setup before ending his career with 3 years in the United States once he knew his international playing days were done. Cole scored 9 goals in 42 games for Lille, playing alongside the likes of Eden Hazard, Idrissa Gueye and Dimitri Payet, as the club finished 3rd in Ligue 1. In America, with the Tampa Bay Rowdies, Cole really rediscovered his love of the game, and whilst not at the highest level, he had 3 very good seasons in the US. Chris Smalling. Sometimes a move overseas can breathe new life into an ailing career, and that is exactly what it appears to have done in the case of Chris Smalling. The former non-league man was in serious danger of stagnating at Manchester United, having lost his place at both club and international level, before Roma offered him a lifeline on loan. Smalling grabbed it with both arms, and he hasn't looked back since, and he has been excellent during his 33 appearances for the 5th place side this season. Kieran Trippier. Another current England international plying his trade overseas right now, Kieran Trippier has had an up-down few years. The fullback was outstanding at the 2018 World Cup, following an impressive campaign with Spurs before having a poor season with Tottenham, and then this season having bounced back in a big way with Atletico Madrid. Trippier is an energetic fullback and a really dangerous crosser of a ball, but his defensive work has also been excellent under the watchful eye of Diego Simeone. Wayne Rooney. England's all-time record goalscorer spent 2 years playing in the MLS for DC United, and he was one of the best players in the league throughout that time. Unlike Gerrard and Lampard, and admittedly he was a little younger than those two, Rooney didn't look at all off the pace. He dragged a struggling DC United side from the foot of the division to the MLS playoffs, scoring 25 goals in 52 games, making the MLS Best 11 in 2018 and becoming an MLS All-Star in 2019. Jay Bothroyd. You can laugh all you like, but whilst you've been fixated on the domestic game, one cap wonder Jay Bothroyd has been living his best life at the opposite end of the world. Bothroyd has actually played in 5 different countries, but obviously Wales doesn't count, and he played in Italy before becoming an England international, so nor does that. Bothroyd won a solitary cap in 2010 for England, and in 2014 he left English football behind in a move to Thai outfit Muang Thong United, who you may recall were also Robbie Fowler's former employers. Bothroyd bagged 7 goals in 18 games for Muang Thong before moving on to Japan with Jubilo Iwata, where he scored 35 goals in 56 games, winning a J2 League Golden Boot and league title. Since 2017, Bothroyd has been with his second Japanese club, Hokkaido Consadole Sapporo, where the 38-year-old has bagged 31 goals in 70 games. If Harry Kane gets injured again before the Euros, I hope someone at the FA still has Bothroyd's number close to hand. Jadon Sancho. If Jadon Sancho were to spend another season or 2 at Borussia Dortmund, I have no doubt that he would soon top this list, but as things stand, he takes second. The former Manchester City wide man, who is still only 20 years old, joined Dortmund in 2017 for just £8 million. He is now being valued at around 10 times that by some people, having become arguably the best dribbler of a ball in the Bundesliga, and undoubtedly one of the division's most effective players in the final third in terms of both goals and assists. Sancho is an exceptional player, and he has averaged almost a goal or an assist every 60 minutes for Dortmund this season, which is pretty absurd. Owen Hargreaves. In top spot, partially by virtue of longevity, but also success, it can only be Owen Hargreaves. A man who was long underappreciated within the British game, as he won title after title at Bayern Munich, Hargreaves was quite possibly England's best player at times, even in a star-studded squad. Sven's England teams always look better when Hargreaves was in the starting 11, but unfortunately, the midfielder had chronic injury problems, particularly from 2006 onwards. During his time in Germany, Hargreaves made over 200 appearances for Bayern Munich, winning 4 Bundesliga titles, 3 DFB Pokals, a Champions League, and 2 other trophies. A fantastic footballer who was blighted by injury setbacks. I don't think anyone else could take top spot, and it would be a tight call even if I had included Beckham himself. That is all from me for today then, folks, but thank you as ever for tuning into HITC Sevens. Hit the like button if you enjoyed today's video, let me know your thoughts in the comments, obviously double check to make sure that you are subscribed, and if you're a big fan of the channel, give me a follow on Twitter and Instagram where the username is at HITC Sevens. Instagram in particular, I'm considering using to maybe do some polls, live streams, all that kind of thing at some stage, so feel free to give me a follow.